Hello, everybody. Good morning. If you're looking to spend a day exploring all the many questions which relate to the use of digital technologies in career guidance, you are in the right place. So welcome. My name is Anthony Mann. I'm the leader of the team at the OECD for career readiness, where we look at the ways in which secondary schools, but also kind of primary schools to some extent, can help young people to prepare for their lives in work, make good decisions which are right for them, to prepare well so that they develop the resources and the information which they need to make a good start into their working lives. And today we're going to be focusing on one particular aspect of career guidance, focusing particularly for young people in schools, which is around the use of digital technologies. And we're just being a bit slow this morning because we are letting people in. Do feel free to go into the chat and tell us where you're from. It's always interesting to see where people are from. We had, I can tell you, over 900 people register for this event. And what we find is that people come, through the day. So this morning for Europe, it's a very good time, but in the United States or in Chile, it's the middle of the night still. And we find that people join in different parts of the day, but also video from this event is going to be available online on our project website within about 1 or 2 weeks. Now, I'm going to show you the program for the day in a second, but also if you have a mobile device, you can scan the agenda, or you can put in that URL for Future Dreaming 2024 for the agenda. So you can look at the whole program. There's going to be some choice. There's going to be a lot of choice, actually, because there's only so much that we can really fit into one day. And we've got a symposium because it's very much about one subject. And we're looking at it from multiple dimensions. So this is going to be our program for the day. And what you'll see is that to begin with, we have a plenary session where basically we just have one big session, which everybody's going to be able to join about, and introduce that in a moment. But then you're going to have some choices to make. And if you look at the program, you'll find out more information about the different sessions which are happening at the same time. And you'll see who the speakers are. We're very pleased with the people who've agreed to speak with you all today. We have some of the best placed people in the world to talk about their perspectives about the use of digital technologies in guidance. I want to pick out a couple of things for you. At lunchtime here, lunchtime in Europe at 1:30 in the afternoon, we're going to have a career guidance fair. And what we're going to do here is that we're going to have a session where there's going to be 8 different examples of practice where people do really interesting, innovative things. Many of these are examples which are available on the Observatory for the use of digital technologies in career guidance for youth, Odyssey, which is the OECD resource. But you'll have a quick, couple of minutes where they'll tell you what it's all about. And then you'll have a chance to go into a room with them and, ask them some questions, engage, interact, and then maybe switch between rooms. So we want to try and make that as much as possible, like you might do in a real event, in the real world. And I want to point you as well towards this closing debate, which is not something which we normally do. We don't normally do debates, but we kind of thought it was very appropriate for what we're talking about here. Because one of the things we're very interested in here is that we think we need to start problematizing the use of digital technologies in career guidance, by which I mean we need to start thinking about, well, what are some of the problems which can prevent digital technologies being as effective, efficient, equitable as possible in their role in supporting effective guidance, for youth. And I think that's something which is really important, that, we're in a situation, we've seen an enormous amount of development and adoption, particularly since the pandemic, but before then as well. The curve's going upwards, very steep gradient, but we need to take a moment and start thinking about, well, what are some of the challenges, which might be open to us. I should say that amongst this audience of people we have here today, we have people from policy, from governments, but also from other institutions who are responsible for development of digital technology, digital resources. We also have very many practitioners, which is we're particularly pleased about. And we have people from schools, we have people from universities, and we have many researchers. And so this is our community of interest here. And again, you'll see that QR code. You can scan that if you want to keep this program to hand. It's got more details on if you scan it. But let's go on to kind of the next slide. And here we just want to take a moment to kind of thank our sponsor, the sponsor for this work and much of the work which the OECD Career Readiness team has been doing over recent years. We have a long relationship with JPMorgan, Chase Foundation, and the New Skills at Work project in particular. And they support much of our work. And they are people who have been very heavily involved in the whole movement towards digital technologies in career guidance. And we're going to ask them some questions a bit later on today. So, Dominic, if we go to the next slide, I've got a little bit of background information for you. And we're going to put these links into the chat. So if you open up your chat, you'll see these coming through. Please do keep telling us where you're from. Say hello to everybody. And we want this to be as interactive as we can manage. There is a project website if you've not been to see it, the Career Readiness team. We've been going for about 3 or 4 years now. Huge amount of resources which you can access there, from guidance notes on what the evidence and best practices on job shadowing or career talks with guest speakers, kind of through to really deep analyses of longitudinal data to try and understand what works within career guidance, what evidence we have of having positive impacts on young people later on. Also, I'd encourage you to visit the Observatory on Digital Technologies in Career Guidance Odyssey. You've got the link there. If you've not seen that already, we have 40, 50 examples of practice, lots of resources, particularly around use of digital technologies. If you are somebody who uses or is developing or has developed a digital resource, well, you might want to propose it to be included on the Observatory. And it's a very simple process which you can do, so have a look at that. Have a look at our publications and our other resources. And every month or so, we send out an email where we tell people about the new resources which are available. Sometimes we're looking to work with people to find out information about particular types of practice. Send an email to career.readiness@oecd.org with monthly updates request, and we'll add you to our list. And every month or so, we will send you some details about our new publications and new events. Things which we're working on. It's quite short, but I think there are many, many people on that list, and you're very welcome to join. And then finally, I just highlight perhaps one of the most recent, a relatively recent paper, a short paper, about 15 pages, where we look at social inequality, social mobility, and the role of career guidance in that. And I think that's one of the themes we're going to be picking up as we go through the day. And so finally, let me give you some housekeeping, as we call it, some things which are going to be useful to you. Now, we are videoing all the sessions. So we're videoing all the sessions. Dominic, if we can go to the next slide. We're videoing all the sessions. So please, if you wouldn't mind, keep your videos off and your microphone muted. If you turn it on, you'll be included in the video. So you can need to be aware of that. In our career fair at lunchtime, it's more relaxed in terms of that sort of interaction. All these sessions will be available. The PowerPoints you see will be available. Just give us 1 or 2 weeks. That's what it takes. Now, if you have questions and comments, very welcome. Please put them into the chat function. We'll try and make sure that as many of those are addressed to speakers as possible. We'll put our links, which are useful, into the chat. If you have your own links, which you think are going to be useful to people, put them in there. And we have a hashtag, because it's all about digital technologies, which is Future Dreaming 2024. So if that's something you want to do and sort of get involved in sort of like sharing things on social media, if you share that, then that'll bring people back to this clutch of resources. Now, we're going to start in 5 minutes, but before we do, we're going to ask you some questions. We want to know some things from you. We going to do a quick poll of a couple of questions because we want to get your perspective. You are part of this community of interest of people who are super interested in the use of digital technologies, in guidance, and probably have experience of actually using them and developing them. So are we ready for the polling questions? Here we go. So I've got 2 questions for you. Now, first one's about thinking about the future. One is thinking about the here and now. First question. Our question for you is, how confident are you that digital technologies will ultimately help to significantly improve career guidance outcomes in your country? Now, this is a question open to everybody. Tell us what you think. How confident are you? So you've got 4 choices there. Very confident, quite confident, not so confident, not at all confident. Now, so do you think that they will, significantly improve guidance outcomes for young people? Substantially improve differences? That's the question for you. So let's give this a little bit more time. If you've answered that question, you can go down to the second question. You can use the bar, I think on my system at least, to go down to second questions. And I'm thinking here in the second question about today. As of today, and I want you to, sorry, I should have gotten here quicker. I want you here to do, ideally you only pick 3 of these, so if you pick more, that's okay. But we want to get a sense from people about, kind of the relative value where you see digital technologies working much better compared to traditional ways of working. So if you're still answering this question, what I want you to do is just pick the, particularly the 3 where you think, this is working a lot better already. I think this works a lot better compared to traditional ways of working. Now, I think some areas are not going to work better. We tend to believe that a blended future is the future we should be going for. But it's very interesting to just get your kind of snapshot. So I am going to give you about 20 more seconds to make your choices based upon your experience. How confident are you about the long-term outcomes? What are you seeing already in your work? All right. So I'm going to give you 10 more seconds now. Make your choices. And now I'm going to ask my colleague Alison to end the poll, and let's look at the results. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see the results up here. And what we find, based upon those of you here for the very first session, is that you are a confident audience. 3/4 of you are either very confident or quite confident. Well, perhaps that's not a huge surprise given the audience, given the subject what we're talking about. But 1/4 of you are exhibiting some real suspicions that this may not sort of like be ultimately lead to significant improvements in guidance outcomes. Well, I think that's healthy skepticism. And, we do see great capacity within these resources to improve outcomes, but, we need to ask ourselves some hard questions. And then in terms of where we see sort of like impact greatest at the moment, well, helping students to decide in their interests and career plans. But that might be things like online psychometric tests and questionnaires. Then we've got engaging safely with people in work, identifying, connecting with people in work. We think that's hugely important. Developing skills relevant to career development. This is something we're going to be talking about later on today in the transition session in particular. Managing guidance systems in schools efficiently. Well, we kind of hope that people are saving a lot of time and energy within that. And so this gives it, and there's research which is least confidence really at seeing things at the moment is, we're still, seeing, we've still got a way to go, perhaps, in terms of work experience placements and, kind of targeting socially disadvantaged students, providing them with more and better resources and support. And that, again, is going to be a theme. So let's jump into our first session. Thank you for that. Our first session is focusing on where we are, both in terms of, I suppose, career guidance and in terms of the technology. And we've got 3 speakers who are going to be talking to you this morning over the next hour. Allison Burke, who works in the career readiness team here at the OECD, is going to speak first, more from a guidance perspective. Then we're going to hear Margarita, who's going to tell us about some of the most important developments in terms of artificial intelligence within, from a technological perspective. And then we're going to hear from Alex at JPMorgan about the long-term strategic perspective of a long-term sort of like funder in this field. So let's lose the polls, and I'm going to hand you over to Alison. Remember, put your questions and comments in the chat. Alison, over to you.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Now, if anyone can still see the poll, you'll just have to close that window. It'll go away for you. I'm really excited to be here. And my name is Allison Burke. I work with Anthony in the Career Readiness team here at the OECD. I'd like to add my welcome to those of you that have just joined us and to everyone here. It's great to see that we've got people from so many different countries, and really interesting to see your thoughts about digital technology and the confidence that you have in career guidance, of them offering career guidance. Also, thanks to JPMorgan Chase and Co Foundation for being able to allow this work to continue. Today's symposium is something that I'm very passionate about. It's something I've been working on, and what I'm going to do today is kind of give you an overall view of some of the things that we'll be looking at. I'll start by thinking of the theme itself about digital technology and school career guidance. Then I'll give you just a snapshot from some recent data from PISA, which is the OECD Program of International Student Assessment. So we ask 15-year-olds all about their experiences and their competencies, and there's some really interesting things to do with career guidance. So I wanted to share that with you. I'll then go into what I think is the most important part of this, which is some examples of digital technology that we have on Odyssey. I'm going to try and give that to you in some themes, because there's a lot of examples of digital technology in school career guidance, and sometimes I think we can get a little bit lost, but I'll do that, and then just outline some opportunities and challenges. This symposium, my hope for you in this symposium is that you actually think really critically about these digital technologies, that we think about how they can be used well in career guidance, but also that we think about some of the risks that might be involved. So to start off with, we've used this term, the age of digital technology. And I was wondering, in terms of what the future would look like, I had a chat with my mother, and she reminded me that when she was a young girl in about the 1960s, one of the tasks that she had at school was to imagine what the future would be like. And she remembers that it was something like this. Now, AI drew this for me, not my mother, when she was 10, but I got this off AI, and she thought that everyone would have a flying car, and even better than that, probably they'd be able to fly themselves, they'd be able to move between different places. The future would be clean and fast, and everyone would be able to explore the world easily. Now, this was looking at the future around the year 2000. She was a little disappointed when she got to the year 2000 to find out that it wasn't quite like that. But here we are in 2024, and what we have is the age of digital technology, which is something that is integrated into all aspects of our lives. We have digital technology in school, students actually working with digital technology, teachers working with digital technology. Digital technology is also advancing faster than most predict. So with the expansion of large language models and AI, what we can see is that we are accelerating into the future. The other thing is that it's incredibly accessible. So what we saw, that the rates of internet access at home, for instance, when we have a look at students, has moved from students going from around 80% having access in 2009 to well over 95% in 2018, and that's according to our PISA data. So what this means is that our students do have access to, or our young people have access to, a lot of information, but they're also moving into a changing world. And so that really impacts career guidance. And what I would like to ask you is, if you were to imagine the future, let's say you were to imagine the future in 2050, 2060, what do you see? Do we see something like this, where robots are replacing humans in the interaction? I think actually it's a bit difficult to predict. I think in terms of technology, this robo-revolution has some things that could be positive, some things that are a bit scary, but actually we need to reframe the question. And the reframe of the question for me is, how do we provide quality career guidance in this age of digital technology? The focus on providing quality career guidance using technology when it improves outcomes. This is important, having students at the centre, young people at the centre, thinking about what is the purpose. So the purpose is not to just do the fanciest, brightest thing. If it doesn't improve outcomes, then that's an issue. So when we're talking about outcomes, we look at three different areas in the career guidance team here. So is the tech helping the career guidance intervention be more effective? Are the right students getting the right intervention at the right time? Is the tech helping career guidance intervention be genuinely more efficient? Now, with efficiency, sometimes a quick look might say, well, it's just the lowest cost, but actually genuine efficiency has to do with students actually, maybe there's some cost effectiveness so that career counsellors can work with students. Some of the bigger tasks can just be taken and done, but there's also the macro level of actually students, what they want in their lives and what their skills are and how it links to the labour market actually working together. The last sort of facet that we look at is equity. And this, I think, is something really important when we're looking at using technology. So is the technology helping career guidance intervention be more equitable? And with equity, we look at socioeconomic background, we look at gender, we look at sexuality, we look at ethnicity. And all of these things, we need to also think about rural students versus students that live in the city. And is technology helping that, or is it creating more of an equity issue? And it's something that there's a session later specifically looking at equity today. So I told you I wanted to show you a little bit of the PISA data. I think this is important. Our research shows that young people that have access to career guidance interventions that help them think about their future, explore their future, or experience the future of work, they do better in terms of their long-term outcomes. They're highly employed, they are more fulfilled, and they are so what we have here is sorry, having some issues with the muting. Can you hear me okay? Anthony, could you confirm that you can hear me?
Yeah, you just dropped in and out a little bit there, Alison, but you seem to be
Okay.
okay now.
Great. So what we have here is this is recent data from 2022. And we're looking at the percentage of students who reported taking part in the following career guidance activities. So you can see the activities there along the bottom. The first one is students had to say whether or not they completed a questionnaire to find out about their interests and abilities. And you'll see here, the OECD average is in yellow, so it's just above around 60%, 65%. For girls, they were more likely, closer to 70%, and for boys, just over 60%. What's interesting is that for the rest of these, so speaking to a career guidance advisor at school, less than 50% of students have taken part in that. And then we've also got speaking to career guidance outside of my school, less likely, probably not a great surprise. These are 15-year-olds answering these questions, so potentially they're accessing their career guidance through school. But what you'll see is that for attending job shadowing or work visits, participating in an internship or a work placement or visiting a job fair, you'll see that boys are more likely doing that in 2020 than girls. And you'll also see, slightly concerningly for me, that less than 50% of students across the OECD countries are actually reporting doing that. But what's really interesting here is there were two other questions we asked students. We asked them, are they researching the internet for information about careers? And are they researching internet information about higher education programs, so after compulsory schooling? Now, if 50% of students are accessing this career guidance, it's interesting to have a look at these numbers. What you can see here is that students are really interested in searching about their future, and they're using digital technology. They're using the internet to do this. But it makes me question what's the information that they're getting. Are they able to navigate the internet and ask in helpful ways about their future careers? Now, all of these obviously are very different in different countries. So I've just pulled out the researching the internet information about careers, and we'll have a look at the country spread. So students were asked if they've done it 2 or more times or just once. And so altogether, this is they've responded yes. And you can see we have some countries, so Switzerland, Germany, and France, where almost 90% of students saying that they were researching the internet for information about careers. At the other end of the spectrum, just under 70% here, we've got Belgium, Iceland, Netherlands, and Israel. Now, What this means is I think that students are really keen for information, and we maybe need to think about how we can help them to access that right information. We also asked some students, particularly about their experiences during remote learning caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. And we asked them if they had problems with internet access, either once or twice a week, or every day or almost day. And again, the country differences are something that I'd like you to focus on here. So you can see in Japan, less than 10% of students reported that they had issues with the internet. And the OECD average is sitting around 22% of students, at least once or twice a week. What this is saying to me is that when we're talking about equity, we actually need to be thinking both within our country as well as across countries. What is the actual access to the internet there? So that's just a real small snapshot of the data that we have. There's a lot of data, and it's something that we're looking into. Do reach out and read our different reports. We've just released a report on England's actual career guidance review, with a real deep dive into that PISA data. But what I'd like to do now is have a focus on what's actually happening in the international sphere of career guidance with technology. So I thought it would be helpful to talk about what the main functions of the digital resources are, and I've tried to do this quite broadly. So firstly, providing information or allowing users to search information in a more controlled way than, say, going to a web search engine. What this means is that the information might be guided for the student, or it might allow them to create something. Also allowing users to generate resources or skills that can be helpful in school to work transitions, for example, creating a CV. The other type of function is providing career guidance services or supporting counsellors in providing those services. Being able to provide an online questionnaire and produce a report that then is worked through with a career guidance counsellor is a lot what we're seeing. A lot of the career guidance resources that are digital are actually really working on the hybrid idea. So using the digital tool, but in conjunction with guidance from a career counsellor or from a teacher in a way that helps the student be able to navigate what they're seeing. For the providers, we see a wide mix of providers and a high level of marketization. What that means is that some of these things are very expensive. And again, this is a concern for equity. There are some government actors, so governments that are investing in providing, for instance, a career portal, a one-stop shop that has the government stamp saying, here's the information where you can get accurate career guidance information. But sometimes school level choices are being made. Schools are choosing individual providers, not necessarily bad, but what this means is that there might be some differences across the schools. We also see that the providers are highly competitive in most countries. So there's a lot of different technologies being used and being sold. For me, the most important thing, if you take away one thing from today, is that most of these resources are not fully evaluated, partly because they haven't been around for a very long time. Some have been, some haven't been. It's hard to see the longitudinal effects. And if we're looking at outcomes for career guidance, we really need to see what is the effect that this has had. It's also really difficult to know the comparative effects. So face-to-face career guidance compared to guidance that's offered using technology, what's better? And maybe the answer is that it's good for some students and not for others. And that's something that we need to be working towards. In terms of how technology is being used, I'd really encourage you to check out our Odyssey website, so the Observatory on Digital Technologies in Career Guidance for Youth. This is a free open access resource, and the reason that we created this was we wanted to make sure that the information about what was happening in digital technology and career guidance was available for everybody. What we've done is we've worked really hard with digital technology resources or providers to understand what they're doing, to actually have a look at what they're doing, and to be able to produce that information in some sort of comparative way. So we have international examples of these easy access and up-to-date practice examples, and it's really enabling you to be able to do a comparison, to be able to see what's happening in your country, to be able to see how different technologies are working in different career guidance activities. we are hoping that this will help our community move towards some evaluation. So the Odyssey case studies are shaped by the OECD Career Readiness Indicators form of guidance. Now, if you were at our last year's conference, we talked a lot about these, so I'll go through it briefly here. If you want this link, you can find it on Odyssey as well. So we split it into exploring potential futures in work, so whether the resource helps students get career talks or go see job fairs, whether the resource helps to experience potential futures of work. And it was interesting to see that a lot of you weren't very confident that digital technologies would be good for work placements. We have a few examples of that, and we'll talk about some of the opportunities and challenges there. We also talk about thinking about potential futures in work, and we've also added this managing career guidance within schools. There is a level of digital technologies that help with the managing, and we have an example of that in our fair. Odyssey also shows practice from around the world. At the moment, digital technologies that we have are being used in around 18 countries. We are hoping to expand because we know that the digital technologies are being used in many other countries that are not yet represented. So you can check out and see what's there. The other thing that I'd like to put up front is that we have a look at digital technologies. Now, digital technologies can range, but we're really focused on video streaming, social media, gaming, artificial intelligence, and virtual reality. We haven't yet found examples of metaverse or augmented reality, but it might be something that comes through. And what I'd like to say is a lot of the digital technologies that we have on Odyssey, the case studies use multiple technologies to provide guidance. And it's something that I think is quite important in this field, understanding that technologies can be complementary to provide this guidance. So I'm going to quickly go through 4 sets of examples, and I've tried to, it will be very brief, but the links will be there. This will give you a taster of what's in the career fair a little bit. And I've tried to group them into a concept. So here I wanted to have a think about how are digital technologies helping to engage employers. This is something that we know is really important for the outcomes of our young people. And I've got 3 examples here that are all quite different and use technology differently. So firstly is inspiring the future. This is a case study that is set up in the United Kingdom. It uses video streaming, and what it does is it basically is a large online searchable database that links schools to volunteer employers. And you can shop for your employer if you're a teacher in a school, and the volunteers will then usually give a career talk or a talk via video streaming. Job ERL is an e-mentoring program that has been set up in France. In this particular program, this digital resource connects mentors and mentees. So it's a one-on-one idea. And there's a messaging space where students or young people are able to set a goal. There's resources, and students complete assignments that they're focused on. What's interesting here is that there's still that idea of a digital resource that connects you to employers, but here it's that one-on-one connection that they're looking for. The last example I'll go through is Career Village. We have a representative from Career Village at the career fair. Career Village is basically a crowdsourcing career advice website. It uses an online platform and artificial intelligence, and the platform allows students to ask questions about future careers of volunteers who are in those careers. So the AI matches the questions to the actual volunteer and the experiences that they have. And what's great about this is that you have this broad access to employers that you may not have had access to before. You can see that students are used to this sort of messaging format, and so in terms of digital technology, this is a really interesting example. The next examples I wanted to look at was these ideas of platforms or portals. So this is where sometimes governments pay for these, sometimes it's independent people, but it's where it's one sort of place where you can do a few different things on the resource. A good example of this is careers portal Ireland, obviously in Ireland, and it's developed in consultation with guidance counsellors, and it offers occupational and course information, self-assessment tools, and career resources all within one particular website or portal. Zmudri from Slovak Republic. It uses video streaming and social media. And what's interesting about Zmudri is it kind of offers a course for young people to be able to prepare them for working life. And it also offers materials that can be used within a school context. Another platform, Route to Employment in Czechia. This one's really interesting because it's really focusing on gaming. So for young people to try to get them interested, they've developed a game where students basically choose an avatar or a character, and the whole point of the game is to find that character a job. So they go through the process of making a CV, finding about employment contracts, and the end of the game, if you get the job, you win. So it's a really interesting way of teaching young people about the process of transition from school to employment. My third experience here is that work experience and workplace visits. I think this is the one that we were, as a group, we were a little bit less certain that digital technologies could be helpful. So let me go through the 3 examples and I can tell you what they're doing. Virtual TET is set up in Finland. It was set up in 2020, set up in 2020 to help to allow this mandated 1 week of work experience to continue throughout the remote learning due to the pandemic. What's great about virtual TET is that it allows this work experience to be completed through a quite Microsoft Teams, so a relatively easy to use learning environment. It was funded by the government, and corporations and schools are all linked. Students come in, there's social media, there's video streaming, they have tasks they have to do that simulate the work experience. And what Finland found was that it was really interesting because students, particularly from rural and remote areas, which is they have quite a lot of remote areas in Finland, were able to access work experience in different fields than they would have been otherwise. They've continued on with this virtual TET, offering both the virtual work experience and the in-person. And some of their early results are saying that some people are doing both the in-person and the virtual to be able to have more choice, which is interesting. Another example from Canada and the US is the virtual reality career modules. We don't have a lot of virtual reality. There is obviously a limiting factor of cost for the virtual reality sets. But what's interesting here is that this is a lab, a virtual reality lab, and that equipment goes from one school to the next. So this virtual reality career module allows students to complete particular guided instruction for work experiences that were previously inaccessible. So welding or some large machinery, and the students have to complete tasks, and it's really quite interesting. What's great as well is that this work experience is then linked in with the school. So because the virtual reality module comes to the school, then students can get involved. The last example is Speakers for Schools. Here again, this is sort of a online portal that helps students to find work experience opportunities, and they can either be face-to-face or online. There's a lot of different options here, and it really puts the student in control of being able to find those opportunities. The last examples, and I know I'm getting close to time, so the last example is artificial intelligence used in different ways. There's 3 examples here. CC, you'll hear some speakers. We've got some people from CC representing here, but this is a chatbot that uses ChatGPT within a curated chatbot. It allows over 100 plus translations and text-to-speech functionality, so that accessibility is really increased. And what CC does is that you can actually ask CC some questions. You can choose a guided response or you can type it in, and CC will give you options in your local area and then also try and do a warm handover to a career counsellor to say you should talk to somebody else if you want some more information. So that's a really good example of artificial intelligence being used. Another example is in the Become Education application. Again, someone who will be in the career fair. Here, this is an app where students really explore and expand their understanding of the world of work, and AI helps link the student responses to the database. It makes it more efficient, actually. And what you do here is that students might write down what they like, what they don't like, and then they'll be able to expand and see how those sorts of jobs are linked to what they like and don't like. So definitely take a look in the careers fair if you'd like to find out more. The final one is excellence. This one here is a management system. Really interesting. AI helps to generate the report. Now, I just have one more slide to go through, so I'll be very, very quick. So looking at the opportunities and the challenges here. So to start with the opportunities, you can see that there's good use of digital technology has great opportunities. So personalization, accessibility, engaging with employers, potentially enhancing efficiency, and linking the career guidance to the modern world. In terms of challenges, there are things we need to think about. We need to think about this idea of digital divides, accessibility to software, to hardware, even to digital literacy skills, privacy and data protection and governance, biases or inefficiencies, and a big one, that lack of evaluation of these digital resources. If we don't know if it works, we need to be a little bit concerned shifting over. So I've run a little bit over time, I'm very sorry, but I'd like you to think about the future for you in your system. What do you think is going to happen, and how can we move there to make sure our career guidance is the most effective? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Alison. That's a great way to kind of like start our discussion today. And we're going to go straight through to Margarita, who also works for the OECD, but elsewhere in the OECD, to provide a broader experience. We're getting a series of related questions coming through the chat about things like cost-benefit ratios and so on. So keep those comments coming and those thoughts, and I'll try to, collate, kind of key questions for the finish. So Margarita Kalamova, very much welcome. Tell us about the AI, and perhaps you might introduce yourself and the part of the OECD you work in.
Thank you, Alison and Anthony, for inviting us first to this webinar. So I'm Margarita Kalamova, an analyst in the Artificial Intelligence and Future of Skills team at OECD. And actually, it was a good overview what Alison provided about technology, various types of technology and career guidance. I mean, my role here is actually to introduce you to artificial intelligence. It's just one type of technology, and also to provide an overview of the work of the OECD to provide better understanding in artificial intelligence. So I'll try now to share my presentation as I have prepared a PPT. And okay.
We can see that.
Anthony, can you see the?
Yes, that's great.
Okay.
It's in full screen mode.
Great. Okay. So I'll start straight about what actually our work is about. So the AI and the future of skills. So we are actually confronted with the reality of that there are no robust and accessible measures that allow the general public to understand what AI can and cannot do. And practically with our work at the OECD, we want to create a shared understanding of what this type of technology is capable of. So we are doing this by developing scales which describe AI capabilities. So those scales will describe capabilities from clearly easy to clearly difficult, and they'll be also matched to the human side. And at the same time, we're also providing example tasks, which will show the evolving use of AI in those tasks. At the same time, we are also educational actors like rely on lay knowledge to assess the implications of AI on education. They are generally resistant to change and dominated by fear. Also, economists and job analysts use insufficiently founded and ad hoc measures to assess implications for work. So what we want again to come up with at the OECD is to create a shared conceptual understanding of what technology is capable of. Also, we want that educational actors have a shared evidence-informed understanding of how technology will be affecting skills demand and education systems, and also to have a new tools to design education systems in line with evolving AI capabilities. How we are working on achieving that is we're running exploratory studies to understand the changing skills demand and the transformation of education in covering practically the whole spectrum of the education sector, from school curriculum, post-secondary education and training, via assessment, to like what teachers' jobs are about, and equity, inclusion, and equality in the educational system. So I'm sure everyone would be interested to see the results of an experiment we ran by testing ChatGPT on taking the PISA test. So we worked with computer scientists to test released items in reading, maths, and sciences domain of the PISA test on various versions of ChatGPT. So here first, the bars present practically the percentage of 15-year-olds, human students, who took the PISA test. So practically this is the percentage of students who could answered correctly, questions in the 3 domains. So now these are the results of testing actually ChatGPT 3.5 right at the launch of ChatGPT. We can see that actually in reading and science, already the first version of ChatGPT was exceeding student performance. Then, of course, the GPT-4 was even better, already in maths, approaching human performance. And then the most recent version, or maybe not the most recent version we tested it on is the September 23 GPT version, where actually the performance of ChatGPT was exceeding human performance across all of the domains, including maths. So the question is, what do progressing actually AI capabilities mean for the goals of education? And what will education need to develop in the future, or in fact, should already be developing now? One response could be to help people keep up with improving AI capabilities through upskilling. So, developing sound reading, mathematics, and science competences to help people remain competitive for increasingly digitalized jobs. However, this response is likely to be inadequate, because as you can see, results from successive rounds of PISA show that few countries have a large share of population achieving high proficiency in those foundational skills. And it is unlikely that we can shift everyone to the top of the PISA scale. But even if we can, this will not guarantee successful human-AI collaboration. So this is just to illustrate, the direction in which we are heading in while developing our indicators actually of AI capabilities. So we are covering actually 4 domains of capabilities, which is language, reasoning, sensory motor, and social. And we consider this as kind of, the 4 big domains of in the capability space. At the same time, as I said, we are looking also and exploring tasks. So I'm going to provide you here an example again of, a writing task with potentially the use of a large language model such as ChatGPT. So without AI, the task actually requires collecting, structuring, and describing information. And then, based on that, the user drafts a text and then revises it. So with ChatGPT, the task changes. So now ChatGPT provides an initial draft, of course, based on a prompt developed by the user. Then the user reviews the draft, identifies errors, and then the user revises the draft. With an improved ChatGPT, already the task changes followingly. So the user, of course, develops again the prompt for ChatGPT. then ChatGPT provides initial draft that includes fact-checking. The user reviews draft and identifies alternative arguments and instructs ChatGPT to revise the draft. So this is like a sequence of job transformation scenarios of the writing a short paper job task. And then we see how with evolving technology also the human role changes correspondingly. So the project is sampling a variety of job tasks for analysis again in those broad domains of language and reasoning examples, like for instance, preparing a lecture, reviewing an engineering proposal, the sensory motor tasks like installing an electrical system, providing emergency first aid, and also in this predominantly social tasks with social demands, such as resolving customer complaints, negotiating with employee unions. The idea of this sampling of job tasks is to be able to have a representative sample of tasks from the wide job space, and then we can correspondingly infer then links to the rest of the labor market space. So now let me go on to the implications of AI and a bit like the general thinking on that in the public, and also our thoughts as the OECD on this. So usually resistance and fear is everywhere. And those dominate also overthinking seriously about the implications of AI in education. We have been thinking in the team and kind of come up with like 3 types of denial, as we call it. So the first is AI doesn't work. So it practically always hallucinates. A second form of denial is these aren't the competencies we care about. And then the third form of denial is okay, we acknowledge AI is evolving capabilities. I mean, the capabilities are improving and they can do already kind of certain tasks and we'll be doing more and more, but we still say no because of privacy, bias, intellectual property, human prerogative, existential risk, concerns, and so on. So, and this, I mean, we agree they all involve valid points that need to be addressed, but they distract us from understanding AI's implications. So how we at the OECD actually think, what are our initial thoughts about approaching, addressing understanding the implications of AI. So we acknowledge that AI will perform many cognitive tasks at near human level. And for some, the application may take less than 5, for others 5, for this third group more than 5 years, but AI will be used. And in most contexts, we will perform cognitive tasks with AI help, as those of you who've already used ChatGPT have certainly started doing. There's also some evidence emerging that AI may reduce actually the effects of cognitive inequality. And we therefore, believe, and we also hope to show in our future work, that people with weaker cognitive skills will be helped more. So particularly with respect to education and training for jobs, what we see, and this is also based on our expert group of computer scientists, is AI will move more quickly on some job tasks than others. So it's clearly faster on language and reasoning tasks, particularly driven by the development of large language models and the launch of ChatGPT and other systems like that. It will be slower on sensory motor tasks, involving exactly also robot machines. It will be, again, faster on social tasks using language, and slower on social tasks using sensory motor capabilities. So with this in mind, I'm just here presenting some results from work of OpenAI to provide some evidence, and also to kind of provide further food for thought for the discussion on career guidance. So this is work, some research OpenAI did on the use of generative AI models at work. They're using here the ONET classification of job zones. So therefore, you see like those 5 job zones, first requiring below upper secondary education, then upper secondary, short cycle tertiary, bachelor's and master's, and higher as the job zones. And then their study looked at the percentage of occupations tasks for which GPT could cut time by 50% or more. So we see here practically that the highest affected job tasks are those for like occupations which require a bachelor's degree or generally like higher education at the bachelor's or master's level, which is not surprising because, I mean, usually these also fields, usually, these levels of study require a strong knowledge base, and what these large language models are strong at is using exactly the huge knowledge base available in the World Wide Web, which is their training set. With all this in mind, what we're doing here at the OECD while exploring, the applications of AI, particularly, for education and skills, is we are using the examples of tasks evolution with AI to understand how particular roles are likely to evolve. And the OECD is already starting or proposing to conduct a set of data-driven exploratory studies to support policymakers in the education community in rethinking education systems in view of AI progress. So the comprehensive set of exploratory studies will be analyzing change related to 2 different time frames. So a short-term future that reflects practically current capabilities based on OECD indicators of AI capabilities case, which will be launched by the end of the year. So these are the scales I spoke about. And also a medium-term future that reflects reasonable expectations of powerful future capabilities over the next 5 to 10 years that are already present in AI research and development roadmaps. So we are trying, to cover the topics in the education and skills domain, which are, like school curriculum, looking at how will AI change what students learn. We're looking also at the post-secondary and education and training, so job training. So how will AI change this level of education? Also, we're looking at assessments at various levels, including also PISA. So how will AI change educational assessment? Then particularly at the roles of teachers and also how their roles will change and what students will learn will change. And then also how is AI used in schools and classrooms. So this is work under progress or upcoming. And we hope that actually, as I said at the very beginning of the presentation, this will provide much better understanding of what AI is and where it is heading to, so that this can be used in discussions and work across the board, including career guidance. So thank you. I will stop sharing the screen now and give the word to the next speaker.
Well, thank you so much, Margarita. I had one specific question for you, coming out of your overview about the dramatic changes which we're seeing in terms of the development of AI, which is about the ethics and the ethical use of AI. And has the OECD produced any guidelines for the ethical use of AI in education, or is that still to come?
Thank you, Anthony, for this question, which is quite legitimate. As I mentioned, many people are concerned about bias, security, privacy, and also other issues related to AI. Our work, actually, of my team is trying to create a better understanding of where AI is heading to. And yes, there's parallel work at the OECD, more on the topic of also governance and rules, which are also trying to introduce some principles in the various sectors of our economic lives, including education on the development and use of AI. Yes.
Okay. Well, if there's some useful links you could share, it'd be great if you might be able to put them in the chat, or maybe a bit early for what we want. But I mean, ethics is a big part of this. And just a reminder, in about 15, 20 minutes, we will have a dedicated session just on AI, because it is radically sort of like changing things across education and life, but we yet to see, and we're getting to see it sort of like emerging into career guidance as well. So that's going to very much a pattern for the future. But let me now turn to Alexandra Ingvarsson, who joins us from JPMorgan. And we're interviewing you, or asked you to join us, Alex, not because you've sponsored this work, but we're very pleased that you have. But we're interested because people may be aware that over the last 5 to 10 years, JPMorgan Foundation has invested hundreds of millions of dollars in programs around the world to support the progression of young people into successful employment. The New Skills at Work program has been really huge. And recently, we've seen a big investment in a number of countries supporting work which is happening in terms of these digital technologies and guidance. And I guess, you occupy a really important position within all of this, because we have practitioners here who are kind of using activity. We also have governments which are supporting it. But in this field, we find that a lot of resource comes from sort of foundations and from charities who are kind of pushing a lot of the innovation. And Alex, I'd like maybe to invite you to explain how, as a funder of educational innovation in this field, why you see this as important. What's really motivating this interest in use of digital technologies, and how do you see this is going to develop over time?
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you so much, and thank you to my fellow panelists and to everyone here today. Thank you so much to the OECD team for all the work you're doing on this important topic and the long collaboration. Hugely appreciating all the work that you're doing and the great partnership. Delighted to be here today with all of you, and like Anthony said, I will share a little bit about the work that we do, a bit of background, and our hopes for today's session. So I'm hoping that today we're going to have a good conversation with a lot of inspiring insights and sharing more on the actionable data and recommendations needed for all of us as in education practice, research, academia, government, and business, because essentially we need to be able to build stronger, more robust systems that better prepare young people with the skills needed for the future, particularly the more vulnerable segments in our society, and ensure that the benefits of evolving economies are shared by everyone. On this topic of today, how do we ensure also that guidance systems can, in an effective and equitable way, incorporate these digital technologies to enhance career readiness provision that equips young people with critical digital skills? From our partners, from the work of the OECD, we know how important the role of career readiness plays in ensuring good career outcomes, but also how social inequality mean that provision is not equitably accessible. So we see that, talent is everywhere, but these systemic barriers mean that not all young people have a chance to activate it. And these gaps risk being deepened by these trends in digitalization and green transition, which mean that many jobs will require very different skill sets in the near future. And already today, virtually every job requires digital skills, leaving education with good digital skills and increasingly important to set young people up for successful careers. This evolution offers many opportunities, but the societal challenges we'll need to address all of us together is how do we enable more people to access those opportunities that arise from these changes? And career guidance plays a really critical role here. Ensuring that also offers up-to-date insights into labor market opportunities is clearly important for young people to align aspirations with opportunities and prepare accordingly. through career readiness and skills programs that we've supported, apprenticeship program, work-based learning, career readiness initiatives, helping prepare young people with the skills and experiences needed to ensure good career outcomes. As part of this work, over the past 5 years, we've supported more than 2 million individuals through learning and career programming. And just last week, we announced a future commitment of £40 million to help drive sustainable economic growth in the United Kingdom, which includes 24 million to improve access to job opportunities and work to really broaden through greater focus on skills-based hiring. Another way that JPMorgan Chase is supporting better orientation and pathways for young people is through our Global Career Readiness Initiative. So this is really a core part of our mission to build a more inclusive economy. We're collaborating with strong partners across the globe to seed and scale innovations, support good practice implementation of existing policy frameworks. And this includes, for example, in Spain, our collaboration with Fundación Bertelsmann and Empieza por Educar to build career guidance and employer engagement in schools in Spain using digital technologies as a way to better connect students to opportunities and scale their offering. This program has established the role of trained career leaders. It's built an infrastructure and frameworks that allow schools to connect with employers. It's engaging with public administration. And this has enabled the project to reach out across public schools. To date, more than 15,000 students have benefited from this project. And later today, I believe in session 1C, Juan José Juárez, who leads the program for Fundación Bertelsmann, will share more of this initiative. So I hope you have a chance all to listen in to learn more about this work. In addition to the philanthropic funding and partnership, we are supporting young people succeed in education and career pathways also as an employer. So by leveraging the skills of our employees in volunteering programs or through our emerging talent programs. One of the ways that we supported young people in our communities is through the flagship initiative Aspiring Professionals program. In our collaboration with the Social Mobility Foundation, this is supporting students aged 16 to 18 from low-income families and provide them with mentoring, career orientation support, and work experience. Since the program started in 2012, over 800 students across the UK have taken part in the program, 86% of whom have begun full-time employment within 15 months of graduation, showing the importance of offering equitable access to work experience. For all of these initiatives, we collaborate closely with education institutions, nonprofit organizations, and other employers, which we believe is really essential. Only through partnerships between schools and employers can we provide this really effective insight and pathways into the world of work. So I'll end on a note of thanks. Thanks again to the OECD, to the whole directorate and the team, to Anthony for all the outstanding work and strong collaboration. Thanks to my fellow panelists, Alison and Margarita, really insightful and already learned lots. And to all the speakers and participants of today, I'm really looking forward to hearing, learning, and this insightful day packed with examples from across the globe. So thank you so much.
Well, thanks so much, Alex. That was a really helpful perspective. And I'd like to invite you to stay and Margarita and Alison to join us as well. Because I think there's one key question which is emerged from the chat as we've all been speaking, which is about value for money, cost benefit analyses. There was an important point that Florian raised early on, which was around, we have some initial startup costs and then we have ongoing costs. And we think that, these digital technologies are going to make things more efficient, but perhaps it might end up actually, increasing costs all around because it's difficult to stop doing some things. And we don't always, we see the, kind of the relationship. So how do we calculate these cost benefit calculations? How do we, what would a good, evaluation framework really look like within all of this? And there kind of some broad questions here, but I'm going to put you on the spot and ask for your perspectives, coming at this from different viewpoints. Alex, I might ask you to go first, because I imagine that in your sort of like line of work, you have to think a lot about, the charitable foundation makes these investments, you want returns coming back from it. How do you decide that, this is sort of good value for money, and these are going to be investments which are worthwhile?
Hi, thank you so much for this question. I think what's really important to remember is that with digital technologies, yes, we can reach scale in large number. It can be an opportunity for that, but we really also need to be very outcome driven and thinking about not just numbers in terms of outputs, but really how can we have that effective, to that point of effectiveness that Alison raised earlier, right? What is the effectiveness in terms of outcomes for young people? And I think this is probably an important guiding factor when coming to those types of considerations.
Sorry, Anthony, you're on mute.
Sorry. There we go. Sorry that Alex, thanks so much for that perspective. And just while we were talking, Fasoon was asking a question about kind of social justice within this. So there's dimensions to thinking about, so kind of value for money and equity and so on. And we will have a really interesting session just on that, later on today. But let me turn to Margarita, you next, in thinking about, well, how do we really evaluate? How do we evaluate whether the benefits really are sort of like outweighing the costs in a field which is changing so rapidly?
Thank you, Anthony. I mean, maybe just with respect to AI, what we hear from computer scientists and developers is then, as long as there is a market, there'll be also a product coming there. Yeah. So, I mean, Alexandra comes from the business sector, and that's clearly the case there too. So, and yes, I mean, computer scientists will be developing, also some AI tools that can be used for career guidance if there is a market for that. Of course, I agree with the evaluation criterion, particularly not only, more the efficiency side, but also the effectiveness. And I also agree with all your concerns about, bias and privacy. What I would like actually to say, though, is that, the bias comes because sources are just biased by humans. So what we use, to feed all these systems. And but we believe actually that potentially, because bias in career guidance is an issue, even with human counselors, that this could be potentially more feasible to be alleviated via AI, because we can test AI and program AI, to potentially, moderate this bias than with humans. And this could be clearly, one of the evaluation criteria along others. We just have to, we see it particularly with respect to AI, as I said, if there is a market, there'll be also a product. People are already using, systems like ChatGPT also for career guidance. We're all aware that there are also challenges about that. And I know that the session that is coming later on will speak about this. And, while evaluating, the efficiency and effectiveness of these systems, we have to make sure that our evaluation protocols actually contain all this we care about. And then discuss with the development community how this potentially could be then resolved.
Yeah. Thanks, Margarita. And kind of the role of the market both kind of problematizes things and provides an answer to our question about, is there demand to will follow? But, with the marketization in education, sometimes it's difficult to make, the right decisions and good decisions. And that's something we're going to be picking up as we go through today. But let me give the last word here to Alison in thinking about how we can how we can best create a cost-benefit ratio. And then we need to wrap up this session and jump into the first choice of sessions, which is going to happen in a few minutes' time. So Alison, over to you.
Sure. Thank you. It's a really good question, and I think it's actually something that we need to be considering. I agree both with what Alex and Margarita have said. We need to actually be considering the outcomes, and how we measure those outcomes, I think, is the thing that we need to be thinking about. For me, the equity issue is something that we need to put front and center. If this is working just for students that are already advantaged in whatever way, then for me, that is not a great solution. So for the cost effectiveness, if you have a digital technology that is great and works just for some, it's not going to be great. For me, I think also working together, and the idea of, I think what you've said, Anthony, there's this marketization, which can be good. It builds opportunities, there's advancement and things like that. But yeah, I think Florian in the chat saying it's great having funders, but when the funders leave, then what the issue is that the digital tools are not kept up. I think the other thing for me for equity, the idea of access to hardware, to software, access to internet connection, but also access to digital literacy and competencies, and building those competencies both within the adult guidance community as well as in young people. And the last thing is that these resources are culturally relevant, so within the right languages for the system. So I think actually building resources and part of our cost benefit needs to be thinking about cultural sensitivities as well. So it's a big question, and it's something that we're working on, and that idea of efficiency, effectiveness, but not letting go of equity, and holding those three things together is important.
Thanks so much, Alison. Let me just add a quick perspective of my own here, in that over the last few years, we've made enormous progress in understanding how traditional face-to-face career guidance interventions can make a difference to young people. We've looked at longitudinal data sets in multiple countries. We've found very consistent evidence around the sorts of activities which we can see working later on, and people being less likely to be unemployed, higher wages, great job satisfaction, and so on. And so, there's still a long way to go in all of this, but a good starting point is, simply comparing, the forms of guidance which are traditional to digital ones, and see, do we get similar results and similar experiences at the time which is being done? And then we can see, well, can we expect then reasonably that we'll find those benefits later on? And there's a lot to talk about in that. We don't have time to do it all right now, but we do have time for me to say thank you to Alison, thank you to Margarita, thank you to Alexandra for kicking off our session today.